Hello everyone. In this topic, we'll see what are the options which are available for Azure File Movement. In order to move the files from source to the target or one location to another location, there are tools which are available from Azure Cloud. These tools are Azcopy, Azure Storage Explorer, Azure File Sync. Let us look into Azcopy tool. Azcopy tool is a command line utility tool. You can simply download from the Microsoft website and install on. It can be installed on Windows, Linux, and even on Mac operating system. Once you install the tool on any of these operating system, you will be able to move the data from one location to another location. So why we need Azcopy? In the previous video, I have discussed about Azure Data Box. Azure Data Box is used to offload the data which is in bigger size. So if the data is around 40 terabyte, then if you wanted to move this data from your on-prem to Azure, then you use the data box services. If I have the smaller chunks of data, for example, let us say I have 100 GB of data or 1 TB of data and 10 TB of data, I wanted to move these data incrementally. So I wanted to move these data incrementally. I don't want to bulk offload the data using the hardware. I use the internet and transfer this data to the Azure cloud. Instead of using the hardware, I use the internet to transfer the data because my data size is very small. If I have larger data which is more than 40 TB, then it is okay. We can go with Azure Data Box or any other Azure Data Box Gateway or Azure Data Box AV. So those kind of hardware devices. So these are basically hardware devices. I want to use the internet to transfer the small chunk of data. And to do that, I have a tool which is called as Azcopy. What I can do with Azcopy tool, I can copy to Azure. I can download. So basically, I can copy the data from Azure Cloud. I can download the data from Azure Cloud. I can also use wildcard to copy specific files and folders. And also I can use the wildcards to download specific files and folders from the Azure cloud. Azcopy is going to support two services, which is blob service and file service. So basically Azcopy will work with blob service and file service. So Azcopy is a command line utility tool which you can download and install, and you can use Azcopy tool to copy blobs or files to or from your storage account. You can upload files and download files, copy files between storage account. If you have different storage account, this is storage account 1, storage account 2. I can use the Azcopy tool to move the data from one storage account to another storage account. I can even use the Azcopy tool to sync the files. If my files are there in on-prem, I use Azcopy and I will copy the data to the Azure cloud and I will sync. So whenever you are using Azcopy tool, you need to always remember that this is a one-way sync. This is not bi-directional sync. This is always one way. If you wanted to sync from Azure to on-prem, then it will be one-way sync from Azure to on-prem. If you wanted to sync from on-prem to Azure, then it will be one-way sync from on-prem to the Azure cloud. So this is always one-way sync. And also you can use the Azcopy tool to sync or copy the data from any other cloud service provider to the Azure cloud, or from Azure cloud to the any other cloud service provider. So if you have other cloud service provider like AWS or GCP, you can move the data to the Azure, or you can copy the data from the Azure cloud to other cloud service provider. So you can use the Azcopy tool to move the data from other cloud service provider to Azure cloud, or it can be reverse also, from Azure to the other service provider. As I said earlier, synchronizing blobs or files with Azcopy is one direction synchronization. So you cannot sync in both the direction. In both the direction, it is not possible. Let me give you an example what one-way synchronization means. You have your file. For example, this is the file which is 10 MB file created at 10 AM. And you have created the target as Azure cloud. And this is at on-prem one of the server. So you have moved the data from your on-prem to the Azure cloud. This data of 10 MB will stay in the Azure cloud. If you have deleted, anyway, you will be able to restore it back from the Azure cloud. Say, from the Azure, you have accessed this data. And in the 10 MB file, what you have done is, you have edited the file and you have made the file some changes, and this particular file has become 5 MB now. So this edited data of 5 MB at around 11, this will not get synced to the on-prem. So whatever target you have decided, so it is always one way. If you have selected the target as Azure cloud from your on-prem, so this is one-way sync. If you are using the Azure cloud as the source and you have set the target as on-prem, then it will be in this direction. So it is always one way. And one more important point is, if you are using the Azure Cloud Shell, the Azcopy tool is already pre-installed in the Azure Cloud Shell. So this tool is already installed in the Azure Cloud Shell. So what you will do after installing the Azcopy tool, once you have installed the Azcopy tool, you have to use the command prompt and run Azcopy login. So this is the command what you are going to run, and you need to enter account dash name. Azcopy login, your account name and your account. So this is the account which you are going to use to log into your Azure cloud. So once you use the Azcopy login, you will get a code here, and that code has to be updated in the section. So once you update the section, then it will take you to the authentication page where you use the Azure account and use your Azure account credential to log into the Azure cloud services. And if you are using the shared access signature, then you need to use Azcopy login. Then you need to use SaaS token and the token key. So this is the token key which you use. So this is the SaaS token key, what you will be using to connect to the storage services. It can be blob storage or file storage. The storage administrator or the Azure cloud administrator can generate the SaaS token key and provide to the user who wants to log into the storage services. They can limit to the services, and also they can limit the time. So how much hour? If it is 12 hours, they can use the token key. After that, the token gets expired and you will not be able to connect to the storage account. Either it is 24 hours, 1 day. So they can generate the key based on the requirement and give it to the person who wants to connect to the storage services. So once you use the SAS token key, whatever the time limit and the services which has been defined while generating the key, only those services, and till that time you will be able to connect to the storage service. And also Azcopy has many command options. We can limit the bandwidth, we can limit the concurrency of how many connections we wanted to create to copy the data from the source to the destination. Because the internet service provider, whenever they give the internet connection to the customers, right, the internet service provider has certain bandwidth. Say for example, it is a 10 Gbps bandwidth, and at each customer they can have 1 Gbps connections. When you use the Azcopy, you can actually limit how much bandwidth you wanted to consume, because you cannot consume all the 1 Gbps. It might hamper your other services. Since you don't want to hamper your other services, what you are using, you can limit the bandwidth for the data copy what you are doing to the Azure cloud. So there are multiple options when you use the Azcopy tool to move the data from one location to another location. So if you see this syntax, Azcopy copy, this is the local file path, this is the local which is the source, and this is the target. Once you see this endpoint, you need to understand this is for the file, right? Let us see what is Storage Explorer. Azure Storage Explorer is a standalone tool. This is a GUI tool. For this Azure Storage Explorer tool to work behind the scene or behind the wood in the background, basically the Azcopy is the one which is working. So Azcopy, the command line tool, it is working for the Storage Explorer. So this tool provides GUI interface to manage files and blobs in your storage account. This tool, like the Azcopy tool, you can install on Windows, Mac, and Linux operating system. As I said, it uses the Azcopy in the background to perform all the files and blob management tasks. With Storage Explorer, you can upload to Azure, download from Azure, or move between any other storage accounts. So you have the Storage Explorer tool in the GUI. You can create the containers. You can delete containers. You can create lifecycle policy. You can actually move the data or the blobs from one storage account to another storage account. You can move from one storage account to another storage account using the Storage Explorer. You use your account Azure credentials to connect to the Azure storage account. Once you have connected to the Azure cloud services, all the storage accounts will be displayed. So if you have created multiple storage account, this is storage account 1, 2, 3. All the storage accounts will be displayed, and under all the storage account, it will display the services what you have created. It will be blob service, file services, and if it is table, and if you have created queue services, it will also display all the services. If you have any data which needs to be moved from the storage account 1 to storage account 2 from blob or file, you will be able to move the data to other storage account as well. And also, as I said, you can also configure the lifecycle policy using the Storage Explorer for your storage account. Thank you for watching the video. If you like the content, please subscribe and share the video. Thank you and take care.